Good morning, and welcome to our Saturday morning Zoom for August the 28th. I usually start off by talking about what date it is and everything else, and man, I cannot believe that we are here at the end of August already. I don't know where the time is going, but today we're going to be working on a little mini explosion box. This is perfect to put maybe like a little Hershey's Kiss in there, or just add to a card, or if you're going to visit a friend, it's a nice little pick-me-up that you can, just give to someone special. And I think it's going to be super cute. It would also be really cute if you used it for, say, for Halloween. If you have kids or grandkids that you like to deliver treats to in their class, knock wood, then shut the camera. Assuming where all the kids are going to be back in school this year, which fingers, toes, and everything else crossed for that. This would be a really cute idea made out of Halloween paper. But today I'm using Doodlebug. We brought out my little glow bugs again, and we're just going to have some fun. So the pieces you should have cut, and I will warn you ahead of time, the template I was following had some weird, like 1/16 of an inch measurements. I tried to streamline those a little bit so that they weren't quite so minuscule, I guess is the word. But we may have to kind of manipulate our strips and things like that if our adjustments haven't been quite so. But I mean, that's easy enough to fix as we go along. So you should have a cardstock square. Let me find my little Post-it note here. That is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. We're going to do some scoring on that, and this is going to be the main base of our box. And again, I think this is one of those things that once we've done it once, you could probably modify the size and go a little bit bigger or even a little bit smaller if you wish, because it's just a nice, easy square. Once you've done it once, it's easy enough to figure out. Your second strip should be 1 3/4 by 5 7/8. You should have a third piece of cardstock that is 1 5/8 by 1 5/8. So I've got some nice little springy coordinating colors here. Then I have a white piece that is 1 1/2 by 1 1/2, and that's going to go inside our little box, and you can stamp the sentiment or write your little message on. And we've got 4 little squares here that are 1 1/2 by 1 1/2. And so that'll be used to decorate on our strip and everything else once we get going. So I'm just going to move my little patterned strips aside, or squares, I guess, and I'm going to move these 2 pieces aside because those are more decorative pieces. These are the 2 pieces that we are going to score. I did forget to say that if you have questions, please feel free to unmute your microphone at any time and just pop on with your question. I do have the chat open as well, so I'll try and keep an eye on that. If you're watching on replay, just pause and rewind, and we will do this together. All right, I'm actually even going to move this aside. We're going to start with our square. And I'm going to grab my scoreboard for this one. And we are simply going to score lines 1 3/4 of an inch from the left side. Then we're going to rotate and do it again until we've got score lines all the way around. And I like doing it this way so I don't have to work backwards on the right-hand side. So 1 3/4 of an inch, we're going to score all the way down. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, so 1/4 turn to the right, and do the same thing, 1 3/4 of an inch, just like so. And you can just keep rotating to the right 1/4 turn until you get all the way around your square. And one last time. So you actually do have a bit of a grid here of 9 squares that are 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. We're going to come back to this piece, but I'm actually going to switch to my paper trimmer to score these pieces. And so I'm going to set this aside for right now. and come to my next strip. Everybody with me so far? I'm seeing thumbs up and all that good stuff, so we'll just keep on keeping on. Okay, your strip here, this would have been 1 3/4 by 5 7/8. I'm going to put it in my scoreboard horizontally. We're going to score at 1 3/4. And with these ones, again, this is one of the ones that it had like 11/16 and 17/16. It was kind of crazy. So I've modified these a bit. So what I would recommend is score it, but don't score it too deeply. So if we have to manipulate it, we're not going to leave huge creases behind. So that was at 1 3/4. Then we're going to do 3 5/8, which is one little tick past that 3 1/2 mark. So 3 5/8, and then 5 1/2. I don't think it's going to affect things too much, but we may have to make some slight modifications to that. So again, you should have a couple of little squares here, plus there's a little tab on the end, and this is where we will be adhering it all together. And that's it for our scoreboard. I'm going to keep my scoring tool out. I do like my bone folder for folding and creasing, but I find sometimes that's a little tricky to work with. So I'm going to keep that bone folder out. I'm going to come back to my paper trimmer and come back to my square. So let me show you the diagram of the template that I'm following that I found on Pinterest, just so you get a sense of where we're going with this, and then it should be pretty easy to follow. We have a nice square, so it'll be easy once we get going. We just have to make sure we remember what's our top and what's our bottom. But this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be scoring little zigzags down the left-hand side and down the right-hand side. And then we'll be trimming off the corners. Definitely easier to do the score lines first. So let's just start. I'm going to start with my top left-hand corner. And I might actually stand up because I sometimes like to be over top of my board to see this. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to do a score line. If this is my top, and you know what? Just seeing if I have a Post-it note handy. You know what? I'm going to just lightly put a T here at the top. If you have a Post-it note, that might be better. That way I just know that that is my top of my square. And I'm going to just slightly turn it, and I'm going to score from this top left corner just down into this corner right here. And this is where I find it a little easier to use my trimmer as opposed to my scoreboard, because I only have one line to follow. And you know what, now that I'm looking at this, we can do that bottom square at the same time. So I've lined up the corners of this square with the track in my paper trimmer. See if you can see that well. And I'm going to score from that corner to this, then jump down and go to this way. That way we're doing two at once and everything's all lined up. So there's number one, and there's number two. Okay, I'm going to rotate this the other way so that my other corners are lined up this time, and I'm going to do it the exact same way. So I'm just going to do my top square and my bottom square. So now we should have diagonal score lines in all four of our corners pointing in towards that center square, not including the center square, but pointing into that center square. Now for the tricky one. What we want to do is we want to mark the halfway point on that left side middle square and the halfway point on the right side middle square. And we're going to score this little triangle as well. So let's see what our math ends up looking like. This, I think, was 1 3/4. So half of 1 3/4. Half of 2 would be 1. So it's just a little bit less than 1. Is that right? That doesn't feel right to me. But yeah, it is. So I'm going to go right here at the 7/8 mark and do the same thing over here, 7/8. And then let's score that up as well. Line up my dot, try and line up that corner. If it makes you feel better, go ahead and draw it right on. This is your prototype. But I'm just kind of eyeballing right in the middle of my track here. Let's see if you can see that. I don't know if it's my screen or my eyes. Let me just draw it here. So that's what you should have. And then we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Line up my dot, line up my corner. And the other side. Okay. Just so you can see all my score lines. You should have this kind of zigzaggy pattern going down your left side and down your right side. I'll flip, so now I'm at the top. The last thing we have to do is just trim off these corners. So from this score line down to this score line, we're just going to cut it off. And the same all the way around. Okay, so now you got this funky, what is this? This is a 1, 2, 3, a hexagon shape.
Where is your little T, Sheri?
My T is in the top center section. So if my corners were back on, that's just so I know where the top is. So it's the center square in that top row. And now that we have our score lines on, top and bottom doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I just didn't want us to do like one side and then do across the top. It was just helping me keep all of those things sorted and organized. Now we need to play and fold along with our folds. So I'm just going to fold on every single score line, both forwards and backwards, because we want this little mechanism to move. So there's one side. Two sides. Top or bottom, I guess. Bottom. And then we need to fold on these little middle pieces as well. So in those corners, gently just manipulate those score lines. And over here, forwards and backwards. And as we fold along these lines, you're going to start to see how this little explosion box is coming together. Okay. There we go. I'm just going to grab an eraser and erase my pencil lines. And my stuff's all falling out. All right, let's just get rid of these guys. Whoops. Do. Okay, so everybody should have their fun little hexagon. You've got your zigzags down the side, and I had just figured this out. Okay, so here is the trick. The side triangle here, we want to be pushed in. And then this little W is starting to form. Sorry, I'll come back down on camera here. And this is all going to start to fold in on itself on that left-hand side. The same thing's going to happen on the right-hand side. So if you push on that triangle, you want to make a W like that. So you've got, why do I feel like that one? Okay, triangle in. You've got all these little zigzaggy lines that are coming inside. And it's going to form your little triangle. Does that make sense? I see nods. I don't hear any comments, which is awesome. And then what's going to happen, I'm seeing this come together now. This is going to be like a belly band. So this is not going to actually glue to our box. It's just going to slide on and off to help keep this closed. So we're going to take our strip, fold to make it a triangle. I want to just make sure all of these folds are good. And I'm pretty happy with that. So hopefully you guys are happy with that as well. Now I'm noticing that my blue strip is pretty much the same width as my purple strip. I want a little bit, or my purple shape, I want a little bit of my purple showing even when I've got that belly band on. So I'm just going to trim it. Totally up to you if you want to do the same. And that then may affect, you know what, I'm going to glue my pattern pieces on first, because then I can trim appropriately. So let's put our paper down with that little tab at the top. I'm going to attach my little pattern piece here, but I'm going to scooch it a little bit to the left so that I can trim it down. I'm going to put another piece down below it. And again, I'm going to scooch it a little bit to the left so I can trim my blue piece down. My last piece, because my paper is directional, I'm actually going to put it upside down so that when it's all folded up, it's right side up on both sides. So that last panel, make sure it's upside down. And again, scooch it a little to the left. And I'm going to trim. Just a smidge. There we go. So in order to make this my belly band, I'm going to put a little bit of score tape just on this little flappy fold here so that it's going to stick really well and doesn't come undone. Peel and then just align that top with your fold. Be a little bit loose with it so that it'll slide on and off. And that should just tuck in there like so, almost like our little matchbox sleeves, but it's a little triangle. That is darling. Okay, now I'm going to slide it off and open it back up again. And this is what we have left. So I'm going to take this piece here and I'm going to stick it in here. And I know I only asked you to cut 4 pieces, but now that I'm seeing this come together, I'm going to cut one more 1.5 by 1.5 inch square of that glow bug and put it down here to balance it off. So 1.5. Really great project for using up scraps by 1.5, because you don't need big pieces. They don't even have to match. You could do more of a quilted patchwork look. So I'm going to stick these down. So let's erase my T first. So one here. I mean, I could have used the clouds that were on the other side, but when it comes to Doodlebug, you just have to use the characters. And then my white is going to layer on top of my pink, which is going to layer in that middle section there. And that's where you can stamp a sentiment or write your little message. And voila. The more you play with it, the easier these folds are going to work and create kind of that muscle memory that they just go back the way they're supposed to. But man, that is stinking cute. And then just close it up with your little belly band. I mean, you could even use photographs. If you had really tiny photographs, you could do them circles. You don't necessarily have to do them squares. You could put a ribbon around it and tie a nice little bow at the top. But just a really sweet little mechanism, sweet little box that you can give to someone who needs a smile. So thank you very much for joining me this Saturday morning. You know what? I'll probably go find my glow-in-the-dark Nuvo drops and decorate up some of these outside bits. But I can see how these would be super addictive to play with. Debbie is saying party favors. Absolutely. These would make adorable little party favors. Or like I said, you could put just like a little Hershey's Kiss or something inside, decorated in Halloween papers, and pop those in the trick-or-treat bags. I think that would be super, super cute. So thank you very much, ladies. Happy Saturday, and we will see you soon.